Rain fell softly over the city of Delta 9, washing the metal streets in silver light. Neon signs flickered between the drops, painting the wet ground with colors of blue, red, and gold. The air smelled of steam, smoke, and strange spices from 100 alien worlds. Ethan Cole pulled his jacket tighter and walked faster down the crowded street. It was late and he only wanted one thing: fresh meat for dinner. His small home stood cold and quiet after long days at the machine yard. He had worked 10 hours fixing shuttle engines for people who barely said thank you. Now all he wanted was food, warmth, and silence. He turned into the street market where everything could be bought. Food, machines, pets, even secrets. The market stretched under a long metal roof, dripping from the rain above. Voices called from every side. Some were human, some not. Fresh meat from the outer colonies. One man shouted, "Real fruit from Earth." Another called, showing bright red apples that looked too perfect to be real. Ethan passed stalls of glowing fish, crystal weapons, and humming cubes that whispered when touched. He didn't care about any of that. He just wanted a piece of steak. But then he heard a different kind of voice. A cold, sharp voice that made people stop and stare. Rare goods. Living goods. Only today. Curiosity pulled Ethan toward it. He moved between the crowd until he saw a large cage made of glass and metal. Inside it stood a tall woman, not human. Her skin shimmered like silver under the lights, and her eyes glowed faintly blue. Her long white hair hung down over a torn cloth dress. Around her neck was a metal collar with small lights blinking red. "She's from the Veyran sector," said the merchant proudly. He was a short man with greasy hands and a wide smile. "A real beauty, isn't she? Strong too. They say her kind can power ships with just their energy." The crowd murmured, staring at her like she was a strange animal. Ethan frowned. He had seen aliens before, but this was different. She didn't look wild or dangerous. She looked tired, like someone who had lost everything. "How much?" someone asked from the crowd. The merchant grinned. "Half price today. Only 10,000 credits. She's a widow. No family, no claims. A fine helper or companion, if you like." He winked and people laughed. Ethan felt a twist in his chest. He hated that laugh. It reminded him of soldiers during the war, laughing at prisoners they didn't understand. The alien woman stood silent. Her eyes lifted for a moment and met Ethan's. In that short look, he felt something. Sadness, yes, but also something deeper. Fear. Hope. The merchant saw his hesitation and leaned closer. "You, sir. You have a good eye. You know quality when you see it." He tapped the cage. "She can cook, clean, heal minor wounds. Smart too. You buy her, you won't regret it." Ethan frowned. "She's not an object." The merchant chuckled. "Everything in this market is an object, my friend. You pay, you own. That's the law." The crowd began to move again, losing interest. Ethan turned to leave, but the woman spoke softly, her voice trembling. "Please, just one word." But it stopped him. He looked back. Her hands gripped the bars. Her eyes were wet, glowing faintly in the dim light. "Please," she whispered again. "Don't let them take me back." The merchant waved a hand. "Ignore that. She's confused. Her kind play tricks with the mind." But Ethan couldn't move. Something deep inside told him she was telling the truth, that she didn't belong in a cage. "How long has she been here?" he asked. 2 weeks. Caught by traitors from the Edge systems. Dangerous, that one. Her husband died fighting humans, so be careful, she might hate you too." Ethan's jaw tightened. He had fought in that war. He knew what it did to people. Maybe she did hate humans, maybe she had a right to. "How much did you say again?" The merchant's eyes lit up. 10,000. A fair price for a living energy source. Ethan looked around. People were watching again, whispering. He could feel the rain still dripping through cracks in the roof. Somewhere in the crowd a child cried. A street dog barked. He sighed, reached into his jacket, and pulled out his credit card. "I'll take her." The merchant grinned, pressing a button. The glass cage opened with a soft hiss. The collar on her neck blinked green. "Name's Lyra," the merchant said casually. "At least that's what she said before we locked her up." Ethan held out a small towel for her shoulders. "Come on," he said quietly. "You're free now." Lyra stepped out, her eyes never leaving his face. "Am I?" she asked softly. Ethan didn't answer. He led her through the market, the crowd parting silently. Behind them, the merchant counted his money, smiling. As they left, the rain fell harder. Lightning flashed in the sky, and for a brief second, Ethan saw her eyes glow brighter. Not blue this time, but silver. Somewhere far away. A deep humming sound echoed, like a signal waking from sleep. Lyra turned her head toward the noise, whispering something in a language Ethan didn't know. He didn't understand it, but the tone chilled him because it sounded like a warning. The night was quiet when Ethan brought Lyra home. His small apartment was on the edge of the city, a gray box made of old steel and cracked glass. The rain still fell outside, tapping softly against the windows. Ethan opened the door and let her in. The place was simple. One bed, one table, one broken heater that hummed every few seconds. He set down his jacket, then turned to her. "You can sit," he said, pointing to the couch. Lyra stood near the door instead, her eyes scanning the room like a trapped animal. The collar around her neck still blinked faintly green. She didn't touch anything. She didn't move Ethan's side. "You're safe here. No one will hurt you." She looked at him, her silver eyes cold and watchful. "You bought me," she said softly. "That means you own me." Her words hit him like a punch. He opened his mouth to reply, but nothing came out. She was right. That's what the paper said. But that wasn't what he wanted. "I didn't buy you to own you," he said finally. "I just didn't want them to take you back." Lyra tilted her head slightly. For a second, something like confusion crossed her face. Then she sat down, still silent. Ethan made some food, hot soup from a packet, the kind he always ate alone. He placed a bowl in front of her. She didn't touch it. "You don't eat?" he asked. "I don't need to," she said. "Not like humans." Her voice was soft, calm, and strange, like wind moving through metal. Ethan nodded slowly, unsure what to say. He sat across from her, listening to the rain. For a moment it almost felt peaceful, but then something flickered. The lights above them dimmed, brightened, then dimmed again. Ethan frowned. "Power's bad again," he muttered. He tapped the wall control, but the light kept flickering. Then the heater clicked off. Lyra lowered her head. "It's me," she whispered. "What?" "My energy," she said quietly. "It interferes with your machines." "I'm sorry." Ethan looked at her carefully. Her skin shimmered faintly and the air around her seemed to hum. "You mean you're made of energy?" "Partly," she said. "We are born from light and matter together. When I'm afraid, it leaks." He didn't know what to say. He had fought in a war against her kind, but he had never seen one this close, never seen one as a person. She stood and walked to the window, staring into the dark sky. "This world feels heavy," she whispered. "Everything here is made of noise." Ethan joined her, standing beside her but keeping some distance. "Where are you from?" She turned her head slightly. "From Vera," she said. "It was green once, rivers that glowed at night. The air was soft, not hard like this." Ethan had heard that name before. Vera, one of the planets destroyed during the human expansion war. The report said it was full of hostile life forms. But looking at Lyra now, he saw no threat, only pain. "What happened?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, "Your people came for the minerals under our seas. We tried to stop them. They said it was war. We called it the ending." Ethan's chest felt heavy. He remembered those days. Soldiers cheering in bars, captains saying they were saving humanity. He had believed it then, now he wasn't so sure. "I'm sorry," he said softly. Lyra turned to him. "Sorry does not bring back my husband." Her words were sharp, but her eyes were tired. She sat back down, holding her hands together. "He died trying to protect me. They took me instead. They called me Energy Resource Unit 12B. Ethan sat across from her again. "You're not a resource," he said. She looked at him for a long time, as if trying to see if he meant it. Then she whispered, "Maybe." The room grew quiet again. The rain outside slowed to a soft drizzle. Ethan leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. Then he heard a faint sound, like a whisper inside his head. A voice, gentle but not human, "Do not fear." His eyes snapped open. Lyra was still sitting there, eyes closed, glowing faintly. "Did you just talk in my head?" he asked, his voice shaking. Her eyes opened slowly. "I didn't mean to," she said. "Our kind speak through energy. When the bond begins, thoughts may pass." "Bond?" Ethan repeated. She didn't answer. Instead, she stood and walked to the door. "They will come for me soon," she said. "You should let me go before that happens." Ethan stood too. Who will come? She looked out into the wet, empty street. The hunters. The ones who keep what humans want. A flash of red light passed across the window, a drone flying low. Ethan froze. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter now, silver like lightning. They found me, she whispered. The drone turned, scanning the building. Ethan pulled the curtain closed, his heart pounding. Get down, he said. Lyra looked calm, almost too calm. It's too late. A deep humming filled the air, the same sound he had heard back in the market. It grew louder, closer. Ethan reached for the lights, but they went out completely. Only Lyra's glow remained, faint and soft, as the shadows outside moved closer. To be continued. The sound of engines filled the air. The drone outside scanned the street, its red eye glowing like fire. Ethan stood frozen near the window, heart pounding. Lyra didn't move. She just stared at the glass, her silver eyes calm and cold. They're coming, she said softly. Who? Ethan whispered. The hunters, she replied. Humans who collect what they think belongs to them. Ethan grabbed his jacket and pointed to the back door. We need to go now. Lyra shook her head. Running will not stop them. They can smell my energy across miles. But before she could say more, the door burst open. 3 soldiers in black armor rushed in, their rifles glowing blue. Don't move, one shouted. Ethan froze. Lyra stood still, her eyes glowing brighter now. The air around her shimmered like heat from a flame. Target confirmed, said the soldier. Varen female, collared but active. They aimed their weapons. Ethan stepped forward. Wait, she's not dangerous. But the nearest soldier struck him with the back of his rifle, sending him crashing to the floor. Lyra's eyes widened. Something inside her snapped. The collar around her neck began to spark. The lights flickered. The soldiers shouted, their visors flashing warnings. Then everything went white. A shockwave of light burst from Lyra's body, throwing the soldiers backward. Their rifles melted, their armor cracked. Ethan covered his face as wind and light filled the room. When the light faded, the walls were scorched black. The soldiers lay unconscious. Ethan looked up at her, gasping. What did you do? Lyra's voice was trembling. I didn't want to, but they would have killed you. Her collar was half broken now, sparks falling from it. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Ethan stood slowly. We have to go before more come. Lyra nodded weakly. Yes, but I need to tell you something first. They stepped outside into the dark alley. Rain washed the smoke away, hissing on the hot pavement. In the distance, sirens wailed. Lyra leaned against the wall. You saw my power, she said. Now you must understand it. Ethan looked at her carefully. Her body seemed made of light and flesh together. Human shape, alien glow. What are you really? I am Varen, she said softly. Our kind are born from the light that lives in stars. We can share our energy with others. Or take it away, she paused, her eyes dimming. Humans discovered that our energy can power machines for centuries. So they came for us. Ethan swallowed hard. I was there, he said quietly. On one of those missions. They told us your people attacked first. Lyra smiled sadly. That is what your leaders said. But truth dies quickly in war. She looked up at the rain. My husband was a healer. He believed in peace. He tried to speak with your commanders. Her voice broke slightly. They shot him in front of me. Ethan felt his stomach twist. He remembered the reports. Enemy resistance neutralized. He had believed those words without question. I'm sorry, he said, his voice rough. If I could take it back, you cannot, she said simply. But you can help me now. How? They took something from me, she said, her hands trembling. My child. A small one, only 3 cycles old. He was taken to the human labs for testing. Ethan's eyes widened. Testing? You mean, yes, she whispered. They use the young ones to make weapons. The words hit him like a blade. He had heard rumors. Secret programs hidden away from the colonies. He never believed them. Where? He asked quickly. She met his eyes. I don't know, but the man who commands the hunters, he knows. Who is he? Her lips tightened. Colonel Reddick. Ethan froze. That name burned in his memory. Reddick, his old commander from the war. A man who said, victory makes the rules. He's still alive. Lyra nodded. He leads the hunters now. He hunts escaped captives like me. Ethan took a deep breath. Then we'll find him. Lyra looked at him with disbelief. You would fight your own kind for me? Ethan looked away, his jaw tight. I don't care about kind anymore. Before she could answer, a faint humming returned, the sound of another drone. This one was bigger, louder, scanning with red light. Lyra grabbed his arm. "They're tracking us." Ethan pulled her into the shadows. "There's an old factory near the river. We can hide there." They moved fast through the wet streets, slipping past the glow of patrol lights. The city felt alive, breathing, watching. When they reached the factory, it was dark and empty, filled with broken machines. Ethan set down his bag, breathing hard. Lyra sat on the floor, her light fading. "I used too much energy," she said weakly. Ethan knelt beside her. "Rest, I'll keep watch." Her eyes closed, glowing faintly like a candle. "You should not trust me so easily," she murmured. "Maybe," Ethan said softly. "But you didn't kill me when you could have." Lyra smiled faintly. "That is true." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. As Ethan looked through the cracked window, he saw red lights moving in the distance. Reddick's voice came through the static of a broken radio nearby. "The Veyron asset has bonded with a human. If she resists, kill them both." Ethan froze. His hand tightened around the radio. He looked back at Lyra sleeping on the cold floor, her face peaceful in the dim glow. "They're not taking you again," he whispered. Lightning flashed. The hunt had begun. The storm outside had turned wild by morning. Lightning flashed over Delta 9, painting the sky white for seconds at a time. The old factory shook with every thunderclap, and cold wind howled through its broken windows. Ethan stood near the doorway, rifle in hand, an old weapon he hadn't used since the war. He watched the rain, knowing it was only a matter of time before they found them. Behind him, Lyra lay on a blanket made from his jacket. Her skin still shimmered faintly, but her breathing was slow and weak. When she finally opened her eyes, they glowed dim silver. "You didn't leave," she whispered. Ethan turned to her. "You think I would?" Her lips curved slightly. "Humans usually do." He almost smiled, but then the radio crackled again. A cold voice echoed through it. "Colonel Reddick. Search sectors 6 through 9. She's injured. The human with her is ex-soldier Ethan Cole. Bring them in alive if possible, but don't waste time." Ethan's jaw tightened. Reddick's voice was exactly as he remembered. Calm, cruel, and sure of himself. Lyra sat up slowly. "He won't stop," she said. "He believes owning me means owning my power. Then he'll have to kill me first," Ethan said quietly. Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You don't even know what you're defending." "I know enough," Ethan said. "You're not a weapon. You're a person. That's enough for me." For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the wind filled the silence, then to sound. Low at first like a hum, then louder. Engines. Ethan moved to the window. Through the rain, he saw hover transports landing near the edge of the factory. Armed troops spread out with glowing visors and scanner drones. "They found us," he said. Lyra stood unsteady. "Then we run." Ethan nodded. "Follow me." They slipped through the back hallways past rusted pipes and fallen beams. The building groaned under the storm, each gust of wind sounding like footsteps. As they neared the exit, Lyra suddenly stopped. Her eyes flicked toward the ceiling. "Wait," she whispered. A small drone hovered above them, silent as a ghost. It flashed red once, target locked. "Down!" Ethan shouted. The drone fired a pulse of blue light. The wall exploded behind them. Ethan grabbed Lyra and dove behind a metal crate. Dust filled the air. He raised his rifle and shot, hitting the drone with a short burst. It fell, sparking and smoking. Lyra looked at him with surprise. "You're still good at this," she said softly. "Bad habits don't die easy," he replied, but there was no time to rest. The explosion had alerted the soldiers outside. Boots echoed through the hall. Lyra's hands trembled and faint light began to rise from her palms. "I can hide us. For a short time." "What do you mean?" Ethan asked. "Our energy bends the light around us," she said. "But it costs strength." Before he could answer, she reached out and touched his chest. A rush of cold fire spread through him, strange but not painful. The world around them blurred, colors fading until everything looked hazy and slow. Footsteps passed by, soldiers walking right past their hiding spot. One of them stopped for a second, confused, then moved on. Lyra pulled her hand back, gasping. Her glow faded almost completely. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked. She nodded weakly. I can do that only once. They slipped through the back door and out into the rain. The city stretched ahead, dark streets, flashing signs, endless noise. Ethan led her down an alley toward the old cargo tunnels under the market. He remembered them from his army days, forgotten places no one patrolled anymore. Behind them, the factory exploded. Flames rose high into the storm. Lyra stumbled. Ethan caught her. Her skin felt ice cold. I can't hold this form much longer, she whispered. If they capture me, they'll drain me. They won't, Ethan said. We'll find a way out. They reached the tunnel entrance, a rusted door hidden behind a pile of crates. Ethan forced it open and they stepped into darkness. Only faint blue light from Lyra's skin guided them. The tunnel smelled of dust and old oil. After a while, Ethan spoke quietly. Back in the war, I followed every order, never asked why. I thought I was protecting humanity. Lyra looked at him. And now? He shook his head. Now I think we became the thing we feared most. She touched his arm gently. Guilt is heavy, she said, but you can still choose what kind of human you want to be. Before Ethan could answer, a faint sound echoed behind them, the hiss of a door. They're here, he whispered. Red lights appeared. At the far end of the tunnel, scanners. Sweeping the walls, Ethan and Lyra ran. The ground shook as drones flew in, firing energy bolts that blasted the tunnel walls. Sparks and smoke filled the air. Ethan turned and fired back, shouting for Lyra to keep moving. One drone exploded, then another. But there were too many. Lyra stopped suddenly, turning toward the soldiers. Her eyes flared bright silver. Enough, she said. The air rippled. Every metal surface around them glowed white-hot for an instant. The soldiers screamed as their weapons melted in their hands. Ethan shielded his face from the light. When it faded, silence returned. Lyra fell to her knees, trembling. Ethan rushed to her side. Hey, stay with me. Her voice was barely a whisper. I use too much. My light. It's fading. He lifted her into his arms. Don't you die on me. Her eyes fluttered open. You can't save me by running forever. Then I'll fight, Ethan said. Somewhere above them, Reddick's voice echoed again through a loudspeaker. You can't hide, Cole. You know how this ends. Ethan looked up, rain dripping from the broken tunnel roof. His voice was low and full of fire. No, Reddick, he said. You don't. The tunnels below Delta 9 were cold and silent. Drops of water fell from cracked pipes echoing like slow, lonely clocks. Ethan carried Lyra in his arms, her body faintly glowing but weaker with every step. He finally stopped inside an old maintenance chamber, its floor covered in dust and machine scraps. He laid her gently on a pile of cloth and looked around. The place was empty except for old lights and a few power cells. Rest here, he said quietly. You'll be safe for now. Lyra tried to speak, but her voice was only a whisper. They won't stop. Until I'm gone. Ethan crouched beside her. Then I'll make sure they never find you. She looked at him with tired eyes. You still don't understand what I am. Ethan frowned. Then tell me. Lyra's skin shimmered faintly as she spoke. The Veyron people are made of living energy. We can connect to others and share thoughts, memories, even life itself. But once we connect, we can never truly separate again. Ethan's heart thumped. You mean that night when you touched me? When I heard your voice in my head? She nodded weakly. Yes, the bond began. He sat back, stunned. So, what does that mean for us? It means your life and mine are linked now, she said. If one fades, the other follows. Ethan looked at her in silence. The sound of rain above echoed through the metal roof. Then I guess I have one more reason to keep you alive. Lyra smiled faintly. Humans always find strange reasons for bravery. He smiled too, but the moment didn't last. A low vibration rumbled through the floor. Distant engines, searching. They're still tracking us, Ethan said. Lyra closed her eyes. Reddick has my energy signature. He used the collar to mark me. If I can break it completely, they'll lose the signal. Ethan stood, scanning the room. Then we need tools. He opened a rusted locker and found old cables, pliers, and a cracked power converter. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. Hold still, he said, kneeling beside her. This might hurt. She didn't move. Pain means I'm still alive. Ethan carefully worked on the collar, sparks flying each time he cut a wire. The faint smell of burnt metal filled the room. Lyra bit her lip but didn't scream. Finally, with one last spark, The collar broke apart and fell to the ground. The blinking light stopped. Lyra gasped, her eyes glowing brighter than before. It's gone. Then, for the first time, the air around her began to shine. A soft silver mist spread across the room, warm and alive. Ethan felt his heart race. The glow seemed to move with his breath. "What's happening?" he asked, stunned. "Our bond," Lyra said softly. "It grows stronger when I'm free." Ethan felt something, a warmth deep inside, not just in his body but in his mind. Memories not his own flashed before him. A green sky, tall crystal trees, children laughing near a glowing river. He saw Lyra's husband smiling, holding a small child. Then screams, fire. The sound of engines tearing through clouds. Ethan flinched and grabbed his head. The images stopped. Lyra reached for his hand. "You saw it," she said. He nodded slowly, breathing hard. "Your world. Your family," she looked away. "My child is still out there. Reddick has him. I can feel it sometimes and like a pulse in the dark." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we'll find him together." Lyra stared at him, her eyes shining. "Why would you risk your life for someone you barely know?" Ethan smiled sadly. "Because I used to be one of them. I destroyed things I didn't understand. Maybe this is how I make it right." For a long time, she said nothing. Then she reached out, her fingers brushing his. "You carry much guilt, Ethan Cole," she whispered. "But inside that guilt, I see light." They sat in silence for a while. The storm above faded to soft rain. The world felt still, like the eye of a storm before chaos returned. Then a sudden metallic crack echoed through the tunnel. Ethan jumped to his feet, grabbing his rifle. "Someone's coming." He moved toward the door and peeked outside. A small recon drone floated nearby, scanning the tunnel walls. "Damn it," he muttered. "They're sweeping the area." Lyra stood, her glow returning stronger now that the collar was gone. "We can't hide forever. If they come, we fight." Ethan looked back at her, surprised. "Fight? You can barely stand." "I am Varen," she said firmly. "We are born from stars. We do not crawl in the dark." A faint smile crossed Ethan's face. "Then let's give them a fight they'll never forget." Lyra stepped closer to him, her hand touching his chest again. "Our bond can give you strength, and if you trust me." "I do." The world went white for a second. Energy surged through Ethan's body, bright and powerful. His eyes glowed faintly like hers. He felt her heartbeat inside his chest, and she felt his. Two lives, one rhythm. The sound of soldiers echoed closer. Reddick's voice boomed through the speakers above. "Cole, you've made a mistake. Step aside and I'll let you live." Ethan raised his rifle, his voice steady. "You already took enough lives, Reddick. You're not taking hers." The tunnel lights flickered. Lyra's glow grew brighter until it filled the chamber. The air itself seemed to tremble. Outside, the soldiers formed a line, ready to storm the place. Lyra whispered, "Are you ready?" Ethan nodded. "Let's finish this." As the doors exploded open, light and fire erupted together. Man and alien stood side by side, a human heart and a Varen soul, ready to fight the darkness that made them both. The tunnels shook as explosions thundered outside. Dust fell from the ceiling. The smell of smoke filled the air. Ethan gripped his rifle tight, his pulse matching the rhythm of the storm above. Beside him, Lyra stood glowing like a star trapped in human form. Her silver eyes burned brighter than ever. The bond between them pulsed with strange warmth. He could feel her heartbeat and she could feel his. The sound of boots echoed from every direction. Colonel Reddick's soldiers were closing in fast. Lyra took a slow breath. "They won't stop, Ethan, not until we're dead." "Then we make our stand here," he said. "End it tonight." Her lips curved faintly. "You sound like a soldier again." He looked at her, eyes steady. "No. This time I'm fighting for something real." The first wave of soldiers appeared through the tunnel, armored, silent, weapons glowing blue. They moved like machines, perfectly in sync. Reddick's voice came through a loudspeaker again, cold and proud. "Cole, I taught you better than this." "You can't save her. She's a weapon, not a woman." "Step aside." Ethan raised his gun. "You were wrong then, and you're wrong now." Reddick laughed, a harsh metallic sound. "You think she cares about you? When she's done using you, she'll burn what's left." Ethan didn't answer. He looked at Lyra, who met his gaze without fear. "Let's prove him wrong," he said quietly. Then the battle began. The first blast came from the soldiers' rifles. filling the tunnel with blue fire. Ethan ducked behind an old generator and returned fire. His shots hit one soldier, then another. Sparks flew as armor cracked. Lyra raised her hands. The air shimmered like heat waves and a wall of light exploded outward, pushing the attackers back. Their guns overheated and burst into flames. Ethan stared in awe. "How are you doing that?" Her voice was calm but strained. "The bond shares your strength with mine. Together we can do more." But he could see it was costing her. Every burst of light made her glow weaker. He shouted, "Stop before it kills you." She looked at him with a tired smile. "You forget, Ethan. I died once already." Before he could answer, the ceiling cracked open. From above, a heavy dropship descended, tearing through the structure. A flood of light filled the tunnel, and then he appeared. Colonel Reddick, tall, armored in black with red markings, his face half hidden by a visor. In his hand was a small black device glowing faintly blue. Lyra froze. "The control chip," she whispered. Reddick smirked. "Smart girl. This chip still connects to your collar even if it's broken. One press." He clicked the button, and your power becomes pain. Lyra screamed as her body arched backward, light bursting from her skin. The energy shook the walls. Ethan ran to her, catching her before she fell. "Lyra!" Her glow flickered wildly like a dying flame. "It's inside me," she gasped. Reddick stepped closer. "Stand down, Cole. I'll let you live if you hand her over." Ethan glared at him. "You don't get to make that offer anymore." He fired, hitting Reddick's shoulder. Sparks flew, but the armor held. Reddick laughed. "Still stubborn? That's why I liked you." Ethan charged forward, but Reddick hit a control switch on his wrist. Metal claws burst from the floor, wrapping around Ethan's legs. Reddick aimed his rifle. "You can't stop progress, soldier. She's the future." "Then the future's sick," Ethan growled. Lyra's voice was weak, trembling. "Ethan, take my hand." He reached for her. The moment their fingers touched, the bond ignited. A blinding light filled the tunnel. The claws melted. The ground cracked. Reddick stumbled backward, shielding his face. Ethan stood glowing with the same silver fire as Lyra. His veins shone like threads of light. What are you?" Reddick shouted. Ethan's voice was calm. "Human, just evolved." He moved faster than he thought possible. One strike, Reddick's gun shattered. Another. The control chip flew from his hand and broke against the wall. Lyra's pain stopped. She fell to her knees, breathing hard. Reddick, furious, grabbed a blade from his belt and lunged. "You'll die for this, Cole." Ethan met him halfway. Their weapons clashed, metal against light. Sparks burst with every strike. "You taught me everything I know," Ethan said through clenched teeth. "But you never taught me mercy." He slammed his fist into Reddick's chest plate. Energy flared, throwing the colonel backward into the wreckage. Smoke rose. Reddick's armor sparked and failed. He tried to stand, but couldn't. Lyra watched silently, eyes glowing faintly. "It's over," she whispered. But Ethan didn't feel victory, only emptiness. He looked at her, trembling from exhaustion. "You're hurt," she smiled weakly. "We share power, remember? You used too much." Ethan knelt beside her. "Stay with me." Her glow flickered. "There is one more thing I must do." Before he could speak, she pressed her palm against his chest. Warm light flowed into him. "What are you doing?" He shouted. "Saving you," she whispered. "My energy will heal you. But it will take what's left of me." He grabbed her hand. "No, don't." Her smile was soft, full of peace. "You freed me, Ethan. Now I free you." Her body dissolved into pure light, swirling around him before fading into the air. The storm outside stopped. Silence returned. Ethan knelt alone, surrounded by broken machines and faint silver dust. In the distance, sirens wailed, reinforcements arriving too late. He whispered into the still air, "You're free now." "Lyra." The silver dust shimmered once as if answering him, then disappeared into the darkness. Moki curled through the broken tunnels like ghosts. The battle was over. The air smelled of metal, dust, and rain drifting from above. Ethan sat on the cold floor, his armor scorched, his hands shaking. Around him, the walls still glowed faintly from Lyra's final burst of light. He stared at the place where she had vanished. Only fine silver dust remained, glowing softly like tiny stars fallen to earth. His chest ached, not from wounds but from the hollow quiet she left behind. The bond they shared was gone. The warmth in his heart had faded. Yet deep inside he could still feel something faint, a small pulse like a whisper that hadn't vanished completely. Rain began to fall through cracks in the ceiling, dripping onto his face. He closed his eyes and let it wash away the blood and grime. "You saved me," he whispered. "But you didn't have to." A faint voice, or maybe a memory, echoed inside his mind. "You freed me, Ethan. Now live free too." He opened his eyes. The tunnel was empty except for the wrecked machines and the body of Colonel Reddick, lying broken against the wall. His helmet was cracked, one red light flickering on his chest. Ethan stood slowly, walking over to him. The man who had once been his commander, his leader, now looked small and powerless. Reddick's eyes fluttered open. "You think you won?" He croaked, blood on his lips. "She's gone. You're just a man again." Ethan looked down at him, rain dripping from his chin. "No," he said quietly. "I'm something you'll never be." Reddick laughed weakly. "A fool?" Ethan shook his head. "Human." He turned away and walked toward the tunnel's end. Behind him, the sound of Reddick's broken laughter faded into silence. When Ethan climbed out into the open air, dawn was breaking over Delta 9. The city looked different now, quieter, softer, washed clean by rain. Smoke from the destroyed factory still rose in the distance, curling into the pale sky. He walked through the empty streets. People were just waking, unaware of the war that had ended beneath their feet. Every corner of the city felt haunted. Every light reminded him of her. Lyra's glow, her calm voice, her courage. He stopped at a vendor stall, the same market where it all began. The place looked almost peaceful now, the chaos of the night erased by rain. The cage she once stood in was gone. In its place on the table sat something strange on a small flower, silver and alive. Its petals shimmered softly like moonlight caught in crystal. Ethan reached out, brushing it with his fingers. "It was warm," he whispered. "You're still here, aren't you?" The flower glowed brighter for a second, as if answering. Then it pulsed once, gently, before returning to stillness. A tear rolled down his cheek. He smiled through it. "I'll keep my promise," he said. "I'll find your child." Weeks passed. Ethan disappeared from the city. Rumors spread. Some said he died in the tunnels. Others said he fled to the outer colonies. But in truth, he was still moving, still searching. He traveled across burned-out worlds and forgotten stations, following the faint pulse he still felt inside his chest, the last trace of Lyra's bond. It led him to places no human had gone in years. Finally, in a hidden facility under the frozen moon of Vera 3, he found it, a small pod glowing faintly blue. Inside, floating in clear light, was a child, small, silver-eyed, peaceful. Ethan stood there for a long time, tears filling his eyes. "You're safe now," he whispered. "Your mother kept her promise." The child's eyes opened slowly, glowing the same way Lyra's once had. And in that moment, Ethan felt the bond again, stronger this time, like a wave of warmth wrapping around him. A soft voice filled his mind. "You found him?" "Thank you." It was Lyra, not a ghost, not a memory, something more. A presence within the light. Ethan smiled. "You thought I'd stop looking?" The voice laughed softly. "Humans never stop searching, do they?" He looked at the child again. "What do I do now?" "Teach him," she said. "Teach him what it means to be kind, to be human." The light faded gently, leaving peace behind. Years later, legends spread through the colonies. They spoke of a man and a silver-eyed boy traveling from world to world, healing machines and people alike. Some said the man was half human, half light. Others said he carried a fallen star in his heart. But those who met him said only one thing. His eyes shone with something rare. Not power, not magic, but compassion. One night, under the twin moons of Vera, the boy asked, "Father, do you ever miss her?" Ethan looked at the stars above. One of them glowed brighter than all the others, pulsing softly like it was breathing. He smiled. "Every day," he said. "But she's not gone. She's watching." The boy tilted his head. "Where?" Ethan pointed to the glowing star. "Right there. That one belongs to her." The boy stared, his silver eyes wide. "It's beautiful." Ethan nodded. She was too. The wind moved gently through the alien grass. The flower Lyra left behind grew nearby, still glowing after all those years. Ethan closed his eyes and whispered, "You're free now, Lyra. We all are." The star above shimmered brighter for a moment, just once, as if answering. Then it settled into the night, eternal and peaceful, and for the first time in a long, long while, Ethan Cole smiled without pain.